Welcome to Just the Facts, episode number, what is it, Bob? Number 7. And we are talking about, should I stock accident vehicles or cars, or however you want to say it? Should I stock those suckers? So we would just want to address one of the issues out there today, one of the pain points, and that's finding good quality inventory. So should you stock accident cars? And I'm going to pose that question over to my colleague, my friend, Mr. Bob Grill. So that's the question we need to answer right off the get-go here, Bob. Should a dealer, if I'm a dealer, should I stock accident vehicles? Go.
Not only yes, but absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You thought I was going to cuss there, didn't you? Yes,
I did. I was
nervous.
ready to throw the beep out there.
No. But you should absolutely stock accident vehicles. You know, as a matter of fact, dealers who do well with accident vehicles and have it as part of their offensive plan tell us they sell faster for more money. And it makes a lot of sense as we break it down in this show today as to how that's possible.
Nope, that's awesome. So, in our summary, we talked about of this episode, we talked about 25% of the vehicles that are out there today for sale, right?
Yeah.
Have had a damage event or an accident event. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because if they saw that snippet, it's like, wow, that's a high percentage. Maybe some people say, well, that's a pretty low percentage. So maybe explain to our listening audience out there, what is that 25% and what does that mean to them?
Yeah. Well, the truth is today, lots of things that fall into that category, right? In fact, at Carfax, we break it out with the accident and damage events, right? But they end up in the same category when you look at the percentages. So what that's saying is 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 vehicles on the road today. And remember, that's on the road today. So that goes a long time back, right? But if you look at all the vehicles that are still being driven and all the vehicles that are on the road, 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 have some sort of accident or damage indicator, right? Makes a lot of sense. Doesn't mean they were total, doesn't mean they're destroyed, just some sort of accident or damage event.
So, looking at things, I just want to kind of hit this head on, is a lot of times like with vehicle history, right? So looking at vehicle history as a whole, and all of a sudden they're pulling up whatever they're pulling up for vehicle history, that is the dealer, they're really kind of blaming in a way of, I can't sell this car, I can't stock this car, what am I going to do with this car because of this event on a report? So what would you say to that? Like, because you and I hear that a lot. It's like, man, this is
true. It's not true. I understand why they might feel that way, and looking from their perspective, it makes sense. But at the end of the day, accident vehicles get sold all day, every day, right? It's always just a matter of finding the right buyer for the car. To be truthful with you, even a car broken in half has the right buyer, right? It's just a matter of finding the right buyer for the right car. And if you're going to sell it as a dealership, right, and you're going to put your name and your reputation on it, you want to be upfront with everything. You want to disclose that information. You want to put it in your listing, as a matter of fact, because here's the truth. It's up to the consumer as to what's a real good deal, right? It's up to a consumer what they can live with and what they're willing to pay for and what they're willing to not accept. It's our job, and dealers find that if they're more information, the better, because gone are the days of just driving as much traffic as I can to my dealership and I'll sort it out when they get here. That's expensive. I no longer have the head count I used to prior to COVID. I don't have the ad budget I used to prior to COVID. I don't even have the car count I had prior to COVID. So what I'm doing now, dealers that have adapted, especially since COVID, find that let the internet do what it does best, which is find the right buyer for that car. You don't even want a lot of people coming in looking at cars and finding out it had an accident after they get to your dealership. That's a recipe for disaster and a bad reputation, right? But if you put it up front, let the people look at the vehicle, let the ones that are okay with it land on the vehicle. They see what you're pricing today. They put 2 and 3 and 4 together. Next thing you know, they show up ready to buy that car, and that accident's not even a factor anymore. It's taken into account. They've already accepted that. But, accidents can be anything from a door ding to smashed up in the front. Let the customer decide what is right and where the value sits.
So let me push back on that just a little bit, right? Okay. Not to say you're wrong by any means, but
you can. It's been said.
advocate here just for a second. So you're saying online to
Yeah,
actually disclose an accident, like the severity, the
100%.
details, like, so,
Detail.
I
100%.
mean, because we want customers to come in, we want them to
No, you
shop,
want buyers to come in.
but
That's who
don't you
you
think that
want.
would scare them away?
No, it'll scare some away, the right ones. You don't want every customer on every car. You want the right consumer who's a buyer to land in that car. Do you want 100 leads or 10 people at the door? And if you're a store today working on smaller budgets, you need to be leaner and meaner and more efficient, right? The way you do that is find the buyers in cyberspace where you can maneuver and where there's freedom of movement and where you don't lose customers, right? Here's the truth. The very customer you're afraid of losing because you're going to put that disclosure out there, you're actually going to win that customer. They may not stay on that particular car, but the first thing they're looking for is a dealer that they want to do business with. So if they look at a car and I disclosed it as to whatever damage it is, and they go, oh no, I'm not buying a car with an accident, but wait a minute. This dealer's got 25 more vehicles or 75 more vehicles, and they're telling me everything about the car. I'm going to find me a car I can live with. You don't lose the customer. You just lose them on the wrong car, which is what you want to do anyway.
So I guess it kind of brings up a thought of, as we look at all the accident cars that are out there, and I've even heard ads and current ads actually about saying, hey, we don't stock these accident cars. So I would never tell a dealer or, one of our partners that they're doing their business wrong. And I wouldn't do that here on Just the Facts. But I'm curious as to why that would be. Number one, why they would go that route. And is there an opportunity? And you've mentioned a few different things. Is there an opportunity for them to do something a little bit different,
Sure.
especially when used inventory is so hard to find?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's never our position to tell a dealer what to or what not to do. But we do have 30,000 dealers. So we do get feedback from across the country with dealers that are being successful and dealers that are struggling. And we try to sort out the differences and present them in an open fashion and let dealers make their own mind. You know yourself, DJ, we have rather successful dealer partners. All they stock are accident vehicles because they can usually buy them cheaper. They can usually market them cheap. We literally have dealers, that's the only cars they stock. So it goes from one extreme to the other. But at the end of the day, the dealer knows best how they want to do business, and the dealer knows best how they can be successful. But what we are saying, right, with all that being said, what we are saying is that in a time when inventory has been reduced by availability worse than it has been in 20 years, right? The lack of inventory is stranglehold. We don't have a single dealer who hasn't told us that they have a lack of inventory. You need to start opening up your breath a little bit. If I'm a Highline store, for example, maybe I trade for pickup trucks, but I never kept them before because I'm a Mercedes or I'm keeping that truck. If it's a nice truck and it sells well in my marketplace, I'm keeping it. Same thing with accident vehicles. Even though I used to just arbitrarily not keep them because that was my policy and it worked in the past, you realize that if you make that decision, which is okay, that's your decision to make, you're taking what's already depleted availability of inventory and reducing it by another 25%, right? So maybe that's still the best decision. That's up for the dealers to decide. We're just trying to shed a little light as to what some dealers are doing today to find success in what's been a dramatically different market from a year ago. And that is taking a look at cars 2 and 3 times as a retail piece, not just arbitrarily saying, if it's not our brand, we don't keep it. If it's under 10 grand, we don't keep it. If it has damage, we don't, those days, that's okay. If you can pull that off, that's awesome. That's great. But most dealers are finding they need to be more creative to find inventory to sell. At the end of the day, with an empty shelf, we're out of business. We sell cars for a living. Without cars, I have nothing to sell. I'm not selling cars. So you have to be creative today. You have to be aggressive today. You have to stay on offense today. Take an offensive posture, not a defensive one. That's all we're saying.
No, that's good. And, I want to get to the consumer side of things, but before we get there, we have several, looking at the list right now of who's watching, we have several buyers out there, right? Sure. So as they're acquiring inventory, whether it be a physical auction or an online auction or, taking vehicles in on trade, whatever it may be, however they're sourcing their vehicles,
Yeah.
In your mind, as a former buyer of vehicles, of pre-owned vehicles, what are some of the things to look out for? Meaning, you know, the vehicle's been in an accident, you see it
Mhm.
going through the lane, and there's not a lot of activity on it, maybe because it's been in an accident. So
Yeah.
what are some real quick things, in your opinion, they can look at to help make a better decision on that purchase?
First and foremost, you have to understand and be bought into your own store's threshold, right? Some dealers are willing to do a minor damage event or a very minor or cosmetic, but they want to stay away from airbag deployed or towed away or structural. That's really the first thing you have to do. What am I willing to accept? What am I willing to? And quite frankly, if you've never stocked accident vehicles, maybe you just toe dip a little bit in the beginning, right? Maybe you look for the minor ones. Maybe you look for the ones that are not a lot to explain, and you can let a Carfax report do the explanation for you, right? And you will quickly find that they sell fast. And then you can become more and more comfortable, because you don't want to take your sales staff that you've never offered these before and expect them to be comfortable selling them, right? Because part of their pitch was, this car's never been in an accident and we don't even stop, you know what I mean? But now that's gone. So I would recommend the very first thing they do is take a look at the total picture and put an established guidelines as to what we're willing to try and where's our threshold of damage. That's what you have to do first.
I like that. So really setting it up beforehand and
100%.
knowing what
Often.
either the dealership's policy is, group's policy, or
Yeah,
really where you want to take things. Yeah, no,
absolutely.
that's real good. So I said I wanted to jump in the consumer's mind,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you've talked a little bit about it, when it comes to online listings. You and I have been part of some focus groups and
Sure, sure.
talking to some consumers. And so as we look at consumers when it comes to accidents, and I'm not asking you for a percentage, because that's going through my mind, is like, what percentage of customers would actually look for an accident vehicle? But what are
Yes.
some things that they may look for or look at when it comes to a vehicle that they're really interested in? They want to make that buying decision. They want to come in and test drive the car. They see it's been in an accident. What are some of the highlights that the consumer may look at of that vehicle that's been in an accident previously or damage?
Well, first and foremost, consumers tell us, and not only us, they've told everyone that does the surveys and the focus groups, that they don't anticipate used cars being perfect, right? As a matter of fact, when used cars are promoted as perfect, it makes them nervous. Okay. Now, with that being said, they don't want them to look beat up when they take delivery.
Right.
They don't want to be embarrassed, but they want to know what it looked like prior to you fixing it, right? Prior to you repairing it. So the best policy goes right back to that description, because the three things consumers want to know, and we know this for sure, this is our wheelhouse. Was the vehicle in an accident? Number one. How severe was the accident? Number two. And was it properly repaired? Number three. That's what we refer to as the full life cycle of an accident vehicle. Number one, was it in an accident? Number two, how severe was the accident? And number three, was it repaired properly? Right? Um, Past that, every consumer is a little bit different. Some don't mind. If I'm looking, for example, now I'm going to speak to the Highline guys, for example, the Highline gals, right? If the vehicles I'm looking at typically fall between that $40,000 and $45,000 price point, but here's one that's 3,500 less because it got hit in the door and it has a blimp. Any way you slice that, that's $100 a month, $75 a month in a monthly payment, $3,500, right? That's $3,000. I really don't care as long as it's repaired properly, because unless I tell someone, no one else is going to know it got hit in the door once. So I'd rather save the 3,500, or I'd rather pay $75 less a month. So again, that's the consumer's decision. But if I'm upfront as a dealer, say, hey, by the way, this car is priced under market because it had been hit in the door once. The repair has been professionally repaired. You're welcome to do an inspection. Don't miss out on this great opportunity. That's what because when you price the car too inexpensive, you make customers nervous, right? Everyone knows that if you price them too high, you scare away customers. But if you price them too low, you scare away customers too. That's why the number one thing we preach here is make a quality description. Every car today has power windows, power locks, tilt, cruise, MP3s, airbag. What sets it apart? What makes it unique? And let the consumer see the personality of the car and make a decision from there. Number one thing consumers tell us they're frustrated with when they look at used cars is they all look the same. They can't tell the difference. Everyone takes nice photos today. The average dealer's got 27 photos online, and they're using generic descriptions. They're using VIN populated descriptions. So every car's got windows, locks, tilt, cruise, and they all look the same to the consumer. So set your car apart with a personality. And quite honestly, a little damage goes a long way, right? If you can have a market campaign on it, if you can have a competitive advantage on it, that's why they sell faster for more money, because, well, everyone else is beating themselves up over the same small marketplace with the same inventory. You can be on the side of that, $3,000 below it or $1,500 below it. With a good description, now you're just looking for those buyers. So even though you say a customer won't look at it because of an accident, if it rises to the top because it's priced low to high, guess what? I'm probably the first or second one they're looking at. And that's why they sell faster. And that's why they can bring more money. You can buy them cheaper, you can market them more aggressively, and you can sell them faster. It's not a bad deal.
That's great. So kind of to close things out here, in one of our teaser promo videos, if you saw those, thanks for watching those, first of all. We had fun with those. And the raccoon. So I'm in a service loaner. I'm getting my Jeep fixed, and I'm taking the Chrysler 300. It has maybe 400 miles on it, and driving down the road about 55 miles an hour. Speed limit was 60, and I hit a raccoon. Well, it shouldn't be much damage to the vehicle, right? Well, the entire front grille is going to have to be replaced. So so you're saying in all of this, just to kind of wrap things up in a pretty bow, we should disclose that, like, the guy we had this as a service loaner, and it was, hit by a raccoon, or the vehicle hit a raccoon. So put that in the description.
Well, here's the thing. You have to dissort damage from accident, structural, and that type, from cosmetics, right? Lots of things on a car are designed to break away and be replaced. Everything from plastic grills, that's why they're plastic now, to fold away mirrors, to door edge guards, to tail lights, to headlights. There's no damage to the vehicle. It's damage to that part. You replace that part. No one's the lesser for that, right? We're talking if you have to repair body panels, if you have to repair bumpers, if you have to repair frame, but side mirrors are meant to be knocked off. That's why they have that ability. Bumper guards and door edge moldings and things. Those are just replaceable. No one's concerned over those, right? No one's concerned. So in the case of the raccoon, if I traded for a car and it has a broken grill and I'm going to replace the grill because cosmetically it looks terrible, I don't have to disclose that.
Gotcha.
But if the car was in an accident and there's a reported on it and I know it's been an accident, I'm going to disclose that. Right. But I don't have to disclose every chip, scratch, dent. Everyone knows those get repaired before we put them up front anyway. You would have far too much description if you did everything. Right. So just the ones that are truly damage events needed, I would tell you to put in your description. We do have questions, by the way.
And I like, and we'll get to that in our after party, I think. And I like the way that you described the perfect vehicle, that the customer's not looking for perfection.
No,
in a used car. It's a used car. And it's amazing to me. Like, I remember my first car, and I remember the first scratch. I remember the first dent, the first ding. And now that I'm buying other vehicles, like, I know that that's happened in other cars, but I also know that the dealer is going to get it fixed.
Listen, the hardest thing for us to do
when I go to purchase it. So
yeah, the hardest thing, the most difficult thing we have to do in the business is remember what it's like to be a consumer. We forget because we're in the business, so we're not afraid of used cars. We're not afraid of accidents. We work for Carfax, but even as a dealer, remember what it's like to be a consumer, right? Remember what it's like to talk to a salesperson, because at the end of the day, that's who we are as a dealer, right? We've come a long way, and our reputation's been improved, but it's not perfect either. And just remember how much you pitch and how much convincing you have to do. You really don't. let the customer dance, right? Let the customer tell you what they want to know. Let the customer decide how you sell them a car. It's a lot easier to let someone buy something from you than it is to try and sell them something. So if you would just slow down in the beginning and let the consumer tell you what they're looking for and what's important to them and what they refuse to buy, life would be a lot simpler than trying to guess and talk them into something later.